Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. You're about to dive into something epic today. We've got an incredible aliens underestimated humans' strength until combat training unleashed. Their true power, a true story that will blow your mind. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss out on any of the exciting content coming your way. Let's jump right in. The overconfident Invador set all started when the alien race known as the Kalthor, a highly advanced and war-hardened species, arrived at Earth. The Kalthor had already conquered numerous worlds, each more challenging than the last. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities with a flick of a switch, fleets capable of wiping out entire continents, and soldiers who had been trained in combat for millennia. They had seen countless species rise and fall in their quest for universal domination. When they first observed Earth from their ships high in the atmosphere, they saw a planet teeming with life, humans, animals, plants, and ecosystems thriving. But to the Kalthor, humans were nothing more than primitive creatures. They viewed humans as weak, vulnerable, and defenseless creatures, who could never pose a threat to their technological might. The Kalthor expected a quick and easy victory. They assumed the humans would surrender or, at worst, offer minimal resistance before succumbing to the superior alien technology. They hadn't taken into account humanity's ability to adapt and learn, nor did they fully understand the potential hidden deep within Earth's population. As the Kalthor landed on Earth and began their invasion, they took control of key military installations, major cities, and strategic points across the globe. The human armies fought valiantly, but were outmatched. The Kalthor's weapons cut through Earth's defenses with ease, and for a time, it seemed like the Earth would fall. However, what the Kalthor didn't know was that humanity had a secret weapon they had long kept hidden: their resilience and the capacity for growth. Humans were not as defenseless as the aliens thought. What the Kalthor failed to understand was that beneath their seemingly ordinary existence, humans had untapped potential, innate strength born of their adaptability, perseverance, and intelligence. The Kalthor, a race of extraterrestrials from the distant star system of Ivorus 7, had conquered dozens of planets across the galaxy. Each conquest had been effortless, swift, and decisive. Their technological superiority, along with their vast military might, had ensured that no species had ever stood a chance against them. The Kalthor were known for their ruthless efficiency and their overwhelming force, and they had never encountered an enemy that could match them. The Kalthor's invasion fleet, a massive armada of ships the size of small moons, descended upon Earth without hesitation. They had been monitoring the planet for months, and had observed enough to determine that humans were a primitive species, technologically backward and disorganized. To them, Earth seemed like an easy target. Their intelligence gathering indicated that Earth's governments were fractured, its militaries outdated, and its people, while numerous, seemed incapable of mounting any significant resistance to an invasion force of the Kalthor's caliber. The Kalthor's plan was simple: land on Earth, neutralize the global military forces, and establish dominance within a matter of days. They had no reason to believe otherwise. They had crushed entire civilizations in the blink of an eye, and humans, mere children by comparison, were no exception. As their massive ships entered Earth's atmosphere, they began to broadcast a message in every language across the planet, offering an ultimatum: surrender, and Earth would be spared. Resist, and the consequences would be catastrophic. We come to take what is ours, the Kalthor message echoed, its chilling tone transmitted worldwide. Surrender now, or face the annihilation of your kind. Across the globe, governments scrambled to respond. The military might of Earth, while significant, was no match for the advanced weapons of the Kalthor. Fighter jets, tanks, and soldiers armed with conventional weaponry were ineffective against the alien invaders, whose energy shields effortlessly deflected all attempts to strike. Earth's military forces were overwhelmed by the sheer power of the Kalthor's assault. But what the Kelthor didn't know was that, in their arrogance, they had overlooked a critical element, the adaptability and resilience of humanity. The Kelthor's initial underestimation of humances. The Kelthor soldiers began to invade Earth's cities. They encountered the expected resistance. Earth's forces tried to mount a defense, but their weapons were ineffective. The Kelthor advanced energy weapons, vaporized tanks with a single shot, and their foot soldiers, armored in impenetrable exosuits, easily outclassed human infantry. To the Kelthor, this was a familiar scenario. They had faced more powerful species in the past, and each time, their technological advantage had ensured victory. They had assumed humans would be no different. After all, humans were still using outdated firearms and rudimentary missiles, systems that were laughable in comparison to Kelthor technology. Even Earth's most advanced military forces, equipped with fighter jets and rocket launchers, posed little threat. The Kelthor's fleet, hovering high above the Earth, unleashed devastating bombardments on cities, reducing them to rubble within minutes. As Earth's capital cities fell one by one, the Kelthor commanders surveyed the planet from their ships, growing increasingly confident in their victory. "It's only a matter of time," they would mutter among themselves. "We will have this world in our grasp by the end of the week." For the Kelthor, the idea of resistance was inconceivable. How could a species so technologically inferior and disorganized stand a chance against the might of the Kelthor Empire? But what they didn't anticipate was the resilience and ingenuity that humans had displayed time and time again throughout their history. From their earliest struggles for survival on Earth to the global conflicts of the 20th century, humans had shown an uncanny ability to adapt, to evolve, and to overcome impossible odds. And it was this very quality, this deep-seated will to survive, that the Kelthor had misjudged. The first glimpse of human potential as the Kelthor's invasion continued to devastate Earth's cities. Something unexpected began to happen. While the larger organized forces of Earth's military were quickly overrun, smaller groups of civilians and soldiers alike began to fight back in unconventional ways. They didn't have the advanced weapons or technology of the Kelthor, but they had something the aliens hadn't considered: an innate understanding of their environment and a deep desire to protect their homes. It started in the urban ruins. Small pockets of resistance emerged as civilians, desperate to survive, found ways to strike back. At first, it was nothing more than hit-and-run tactics. Humans ambushed alien patrols with makeshift weapons, using their knowledge of the terrain and the cities to their advantage. They set traps, using common materials in ways that were impossible for the Kelthor to anticipate. They sabotaged alien machinery, and in some cases, managed to disable the advanced technology of the invaders, using guerrilla tactics. To the Kelthor, this was baffling. They had never encountered such resilience before. Other species, when confronted with their overwhelming power, had cowered, surrendered, or been eradicated. But the humans, despite their inferior weapons, were fighting back with a ferocity that was unexpected. The first Kelthor soldiers who encountered these humans in the urban jungles began to realize something was wrong. They were used to facing opponents who were either too afraid to fight or too weak to defend themselves. But the humans were different. They fought with a raw intensity that surprised even the Kelthor's most battle-hardened warriors. Yet, the Kelthor remained confident. "This is just a temporary setback," their commanders said. "Once we neutralize their leadership, their resistance will crumble." But as the resistance grew, it became clear that the humans weren't just responding out of desperation. They were learning, they were evolving, they were adapting to the situation in real time. The Kelthor's overconfidence breeds their downfall as the resistance continued to expand. The humans began to organize. They realized that conventional warfare was not enough. They needed something more. And so, they began to train. They recruited every willing soldier, every martial artist, and every civilian with skills that could be applied to combat. They scoured the world for knowledge of ancient martial arts, modern combat strategies, and even survival techniques used in the most extreme conditions. It wasn't just physical combat that humans were training in, but also mental resilience and strategy. The Calthor, still confident in their technological superiority, paid little attention to the humans' growing strength. They dismissed it as mere desperation, believing that once their advanced weaponry and overwhelming numbers crushed the human resistance, it would all be over. But as the months passed, the humans' combat training began to yield results. Small units of humans, armed with scavenged Calthor technology and their newfound combat skills, started to launch increasingly effective counterattacks. Their tactics were unpredictable. They adapted quickly, exploiting weaknesses in the Calthor's defense systems and turning the tide of battle. It was at this moment that the Calthor realized their grave mistake. The humans, far from being helpless, were growing stronger by the day. The training had unlocked their potential, and now the aliens were facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered, an enemy that was willing to learn, to fight, and to never give up. The Calthor had underestimated humanity. They thought their advanced technology and combat superiority would guarantee an easy victory. But in doing so, they had overlooked the one quality that made humans unique: their ability to adapt and overcome. This would be the Calthor's undoing, as they would soon discover that the true strength of humanity lay not in its weapons or technology, but in the relentless will of its people. This was just the beginning of the Calthor's downfall. The invaders had yet to realize that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its military technology, it was the strength, resilience, and ingenuity of its people. The unexpected shifted wasn't until the Calthor made a bold move to capture a key human military base in the heart of Europe that they began to witness something unexpected. Amid the chaos of the invasion, a group of human soldiers, cut off from reinforcements, found themselves in a desperate situation. Yet, instead of panicking or retreating, they began to fight back, using unconventional tactics that had never been taught to them in traditional military combat training. These soldiers, mostly regular people with no special training, began using the environment to their advantage. They set traps, launched guerrilla attacks, and found ways to exploit weaknesses in the Calthor's technology. They used their knowledge of terrain, the element of surprise, and their raw creativity to strike back. What began as a small resistance quickly snowballed, attracting other survivors who had witnessed this unexpected shift in strategy. This group, calling themselves the New Dawn, began training together in secret, preparing to launch a counterattack against the Calthor. The human resistance was learning and adapting at a rapid pace. They realized that brute force alone wouldn't win this war. They needed strategy, discipline, and above all, unity. But what the Calthor never saw coming was how quickly humans could learn combat techniques, evolving far beyond their initial expectations. This was the turning point. Combat training began to take a different form, no longer limited to basic tactics. Humans began to harness their natural fighting instincts and improve their physical and mental strength. The New Dawn's trainers were a mix of ex-military personnel, martial artists, and civilian experts, all of whom brought unique approaches to combat. They didn't just teach their fighters how to use weapons. They taught them how to think like warriors. They trained their minds as much as their bodies. Humans began to build on their own natural capabilities. What the Calthor didn't know was that Earth had a rich history of combat, from ancient martial arts to modern techniques. In secret, the Resistance uncovered forgotten knowledge, hidden arts passed down through generations of warriors. They studied ancient texts, observed animal behavior, and used every available resource to perfect their combat skills. With each passing day, the Resistance grew stronger. The New Dawn was no longer a ragtag group of survivors. It had become an organized force, an army of humans capable of incredible feats. The Calthor realized their mistakes. The war raged on. The Calthor were growing increasingly frustrated. What they had assumed would be a swift and effortless conquest of Earth had turned into a prolonged struggle. Their initial overconfidence had led them to believe that humanity was no more than a footnote in the galaxy's history, an unimportant species incapable of any meaningful resistance. They believed that Earth's primitive technology and disorganized military would be no match for their technological superiority. However, as the months dragged on, it became clear that their underestimation of humanity had been their greatest mistake. The first signs of human resilience as Calthor's primary belief was that a quick military victory would be enough to break the human spirit. They thought that once their fleets obliterated Earth's key cities and strategic targets, the human population would crumble, surrendering to their superior force. But instead of cowering, Earth's people began to adapt. The human resistance quickly learned from every mistake, every loss, and every battle. They had something the Calthor did not understand: the ability to persevere and improve rapidly. For months, the Calthor had watched the human resistance grow in strength and sophistication. They initially thought that these small pockets of rebellion were nothing more than a nuisance, easily put down. But soon, the resistance began to disrupt Calthar supply lines, sabotage their advanced weaponry, and even destroy key military outposts. Each time the Calthor retaliated with their devastating technology, humans responded with innovative tactics that the aliens could not predict. What began as simple guerrilla tactics transformed into highly organized, precise strikes against the Calthor's military infrastructure. They studied the Calthor's technology, learned how to reverse engineer it, and began to turn the aliens' own weapons against them. Their ability to adapt to new combat techniques, as well as their quick recovery from defeats, left the Calthor commanders bewildered. It wasn't just the humans' ability to fight back that confused the Calthor. It was their sheer determination. Every time a city was destroyed or a military base captured, the human resistance didn't falter. Instead, it grew stronger. Communities rallied together, survivors organized into military cells, and soon, human forces were launching attacks, with tactics that seemed almost impossible to the Calthor, who had grown accustomed to their technology doing the work for them, started to realize that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't its weapons or technology, was its people. The relentless spirit of humanity, combined with their adaptability and capacity for change, was starting to make a significant impact. The Calthor's first major setback, and of the most telling moments in the war, came when the Calthor attempted to take control of Earth's military command center, important communications hub located in the mountains of the Rockies. The Calthor believed that if they could wipe out Earth's leadership and control this central location, they would be able to completely crush the human resistance. The plan was to strike with a full-force assault, using their most advanced weapons. Their strategy was simple: a swift, brutal attack with overwhelming force. They would send their elite warriors, Calthar soldiers, enhanced with genetically modified strength and speed, down onto Earth's defenses. The Calthar were confident that this would be the final blow to Earth's remaining resistance. However, when they arrived, the situation was not as they expected. The resistance had anticipated this attack, thanks to intelligence gathered from previous raids and the bravery of Earth's spies. The human forces had prepared a counteroffensive. Using their knowledge of the terrain and their training in unconventional warfare, the human resistance set a trap. Instead of attacking head-on, they allowed the Calthor to advance into the trap. Then, they struck with speed and precision, using explosive devices, guerrilla tactics, and even newly modified versions of Calthar weapons. The battle raged fiercely, and while the Calthar soldiers fought with all their might, they were caught off guard. Human soldiers, now armed with alien technology and highly trained, moved like shadows through the terrain, picking off Calthor soldiers and disabling their weapons. The elite Calthor forces, who had never been challenged in such a way, began to lose control. The Calthor leadership watched in horror as their forces were pushed back, The communications hub, once thought to be an easy target, became the site of a devastating defeat for the alien invaders. The humans had not only defended the site, but had inflicted significant damage to the Calthor's forces, causing a ripple effect throughout their operations on Earth. This was the first major setback for the Calthor, and it would mark a turning point in the war. For the first time, they began to question their earlier assumptions. The Calthor leadership, who had believed that the war would be over in a matter of weeks, began to grow concerned. They had seen their numbers dwindle, their advanced technology rendered ineffective against the humans' creativity and resourcefulness. Their once indestructible fleet was now being targeted with growing frequency. The alien forces had been pushed back in key locations, and reports from the front lines revealed an enemy unlike anything the Calthor had ever encountered. As the Calthor commanders gathered in their flagship, the realization finally hit them. They had underestimated the true nature of humanity. Vrax, the supreme commander of the Calthor forces, paced nervously in the war room. His normally confident demeanor had been replaced by a sense of disbelief. His advisors, who had once been sure of victory, now sat in stunned silence. The war was no longer a simple conquest. It had become a fight for survival. "How did we miss this?" Vrax asked, his voice shaking with frustration. "We've faced civilizations that were far stronger, far more advanced than these humans. How could they have turned the tide so quickly?" His second-in-command, General Kreth, responded cautiously. "It is their adaptability, my lord. They learn from every skirmish, every loss. They grow stronger with each battle. It is something we have not encountered before." Another officer spoke up. "We have underestimated them from the beginning. The humans are not as weak as we believed. They are evolving faster than we can keep up." The realization was clear to everyone in the room. Humanity's true strength was not in their technology or their weaponry, but in their innate ability to adapt, learn, and fight with everything they had. Where the Calthor relied on overwhelming firepower and genetic enhancement, humans relied on their ingenuity, determination, and the will to protect what they held dear. Vrax stood still for a moment, his mind racing. "We have made a grave error," he said, his voice low. "We thought we could break them quickly, like every other species we have encountered, but the humans are different. They are relentless, and they will not surrender." The Calthor had learned, too late, that their arrogance had cost them dearly. They had misjudged humanity, and now they were facing an enemy, unlike any they had ever encountered, a species capable of turning their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. The shift in the battle from that moment on, the Calthor began to adapt to the new reality. They tried to use their advanced technology in new ways, but the humans were always one step ahead. They continued to turn the Calthor's own weapons and tactics against them, using their knowledge of Earth's terrain, combined with their newfound combat skills, to outmaneuver the alien invaders. The humans' true power was their spirit, a quality that no amount of technology could replicate. The Calthor, who had once believed they could crush humanity in a matter of days, now found themselves in a war they could not win. As the months passed, the tide of battle shifted irrevocably. The Calthor began to retreat, their once confidence shattered. They had underestimated the humans, and in doing so, had doomed themselves. This turning point, the moment when the Calthor realized their mistake, was the beginning of the end for the alien invaders. The realization came too late, as the humans' resilience, creativity, and adaptability proved to be the greatest weapon of all. The Calthor's defeat, and humanity's risk. Calthor, once a seemingly invincible alien species, had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. Their initial confidence in their technological superiority and military might had blinded them to the true strength of humanity. The Calthor, after months of relentless warfare on Earth, had come to a devastating realization. Their defeat was inevitable. The Calthor Empire, known for its empire-building prowess across the galaxy, had invaded Earth with the belief that humanity, being primitive and technologically underdeveloped, would pose little challenge. Their vast armadas of ships, their genetically modified warriors, and their advanced weaponry had struck fear into the hearts of Earth's populations. But what the Kelthor didn't account for was the indomitable human spirit, the resilience that had carried humanity through countless challenges, from the dawn of civilization to the most catastrophic wars on Earth. In their pursuit of dominance, the Kelthor had made an irreversible mistake. They underestimated humanity's capacity to adapt, to learn, and to fight back when cornered. The result was not only the downfall of the Kelthor's invasion, but the rise of humanity in ways the aliens could never have anticipated. The Kelthor's overconfidency. Kelthor Empire had built its reputation on one simple belief: might makes right. For centuries, they had conquered planet after planet with ease. Their technology was unrivaled, and their armies were a blend of ruthless genetic engineering and advanced weaponry. The Kelthor had never faced a species capable of mounting a serious challenge to their invasion. Their military strategy was always the same: overwhelm and annihilate. When they set their sights on Earth, they believed the conquest would be quick. They thought the planet's fractured political state, its outdated technology, and its divided military would make for easy pickings. After all, humanity's greatest technological advancements were still in the early stages compared to the Kelthor's energy weapons and spacefaring fleets. In their eyes, Earth was a primitive world, filled with weak, defenseless beings who would bow before them. The Kelthor's first attack was a show of overwhelming force. Their armada of warships entered Earth's atmosphere without warning, launching a massive assault on cities and military bases around the world. Their energy weapons, capable of reducing entire buildings to ash with a single shot, left destruction in their wake. Earth's military forces, even the most advanced fighter jets and missile systems, stood no chance against the Kelthor's superior technology. In just a few short days, the Kelthor captured major urban centers and military strongholds. The situation seemed hopeless for humanity. The Kelthor leaders, confident in their ability to crush any remaining resistance, issued their ultimatum. Humanity would either surrender and serve as a vassal species under the Kelthor Empire, or they would be destroyed. The message was broadcast to every corner of the Earth: surrender now, and you may survive. Resist, and you will perish. At first, the Kelthor's calculations seemed correct. Earth's governments were thrown into chaos, unable to coordinate a unified response. The military was decimated, and the population was left reeling from the devastation. But what the Kelthor failed to grasp was that humanity, in the face of annihilation, would not simply surrender. Instead, they would fight back, and they would adapt. The first signs of human resistance. The Kelthor continued their assault. They quickly began to realize that the human spirit was not so easily crushed. Despite their technological superiority, the Kelthor found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered, a species capable of learning from their mistakes and improving with each battle. At first, the human resistance was disorganized and chaotic. Small pockets of civilians and military personnel who had survived the initial wave of the Kelthor's attack banded together in an effort to resist, armed with little more than conventional weapons and a deep desire to protect their homes. These early resistance groups fought back against the alien invaders. They relied on guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and sabotage to slow the Kelthor's advance. What the Kelthor had failed to predict was the speed at which humanity adapted to the new war. Despite their technological inferiority, the humans quickly learned how to exploit the weaknesses in the Kelthor's weapons and defenses. They scavenged alien technology and began to reverse engineer it, using the Kelthor's own advancements against them. It was a slow process, but over time, the humans began to mount more organized and effective counterattacks. The Kelthor, still confident that victory was within their grasp, initially dismissed these early victories as nothing more than inconveniences. But as time passed, the resistance grew stronger. The human fighters began to understand how the Cathar operated, and they developed new strategies that took the invaders by surprise. The Cathar's first major defeat of the Cathar came when they attempted to capture a strategic communications hub in the Rocky Mountains, an essential location for maintaining control over Earth's remaining military forces. The Cathar had assumed that this would be an easy task, with their elite forces descending upon the site in overwhelming numbers. But the humans had anticipated the attack. The resistance had been monitoring Cathar movements and had laid a carefully planned trap. They used the mountainous terrain to their advantage, setting ambushes and explosive devices that delayed the Cathar's advance. In a series of well-coordinated strikes, the humans destroyed key components of the Cathar's supply lines and communications equipment, crippling their ability to maintain control over their forces. For the Cathar, this was a humiliating defeat. They had underestimated the humans' ability to fight in such rugged terrain, and had failed to account for their guerrilla tactics. This loss marked a shift in the war, one that the Cathar could not ignore. Humanity's rapid adaptation and counterattack as the Cathar reeled from their first significant defeat. Humanity's resistance took on a new form. The defeat in the Rocky Mountains had proven that the Cathar were not invincible, and this realization sparked a wave of hope among the human population. People from all over the world joined the resistance effort, bringing with them a vast array of skills from combat training to technological expertise to knowledge of ancient warfare techniques. The human resistance, now better equipped and more organized than ever, began to launch increasingly successful attacks on the Cathar's forces. They focused on small, strategic targets, salient supply depots, energy sources, and vulnerable military installations. Each victory, no matter how small, weakened the Cathar's grip on Earth. The humans' tactics became more refined, and they began to win back key regions of the planet. With each passing day, the Cathar's position on Earth grew weaker. In addition to their newfound combat capabilities, humanity also developed advanced countermeasures against the Cathar's technology. They reverse-engineered the alien weapons they had captured, learning to disable Cathar energy shields, and adapting their own weapons to breach the Cathar's armor. Earth's scientists worked tirelessly, and soon, they had developed new technologies that gave them an edge in the fight. The Cathar, meanwhile, found themselves on the defensive for the first time. Despite their advanced weaponry, they had no answer for the rapid evolution of human tactics. The Cathar's once command structure began to fracture as reports of increasing human success spread throughout their ranks. The invaders were no longer facing an inferior enemy, they were facing a species that was learning, growing, and adapting at a rate they had never encountered. Humanity's triumphs, the war dragged on. The Cathar leadership began to realize that their conquest of Earth was no longer possible. The human resistance, once scattered and disorganized, had become a formidable force. The Cathar's own commanders grew disillusioned as they witnessed their armies crumble under the pressure of the relentless human counterattacks. In a final desperate attempt to end the war, the Cathar launched a full-scale assault on Earth's remaining strongholds. They concentrated their forces on Earth's last major city, hoping that its fall would break the will of the human resistance. The Cathar launched everything they had, using their most devastating weapons to bombard the city. But humanity, with its newfound strength and determination, fought back with everything they had. The final battle was long and brutal, but in the end, humanity's resilience proved to be the deciding factor. The Cathar, unable to adapt fast enough, were driven back. Their fleet, once a symbol of their invincibility, was scattered and destroyed. The last of their forces retreated into space, leaving Earth in the hands of its defenders. Humanity's rise with the Cathar defeated, Earth began its long road to recovery. The damage done by the alien invaders was immense, but humanity had proven that it was capable of overcoming even the most overwhelming odds. The planet was scarred by the war, but the people of Earth had been forever changed. The victory over the Kalthor was not just a military triumph, it was a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and evolve in the face of adversity. The war had brought people together, uniting the planet in a common cause. The lessons learned from the conflict would shape Earth's future for generations to come. In the wake of their victory, humanity found itself in a new position on the galactic stage. The Kalthar Empire, once a powerful and unchallenged force, had been humbled, and humanity, which had been written off as Nth Kalthar fleet, was destroyed. Their soldiers surrendered, and their commanders were captured. Earth's defenders had won the war, but the true victory was not just the defeat of the alien invaders. The true victory was the discovery of the untapped power within human strength that had always existed, but had only been awakened by the horrors of war. The humans, once seen as fragile and vulnerable, now stood as a new force in the galaxy. They were no longer the underdogs. They had proven that their true power wasn't in technology or sheer numbers, but in their ability to learn, adapt, and fight with heart. As the Kalthor retreated to the far corners of the universe, Earth, rebuilt. The new dawn, now fully realized, became a symbol of humanity's rise. The strength that the aliens had underestimated was no longer hidden, it was on full display for all to see. Earth had not only defended itself, but had secured its place as a powerful force in the universe.